Welcome back to Curve Ahead. Today, I'm joined by Danny Gavin, the founder of Optage, digital marketing agency that specializes in helping service-based businesses in healthcare, legal, and home services. In this conversation, Danny shares his journey from coding websites in the late 90s to building a 30-person agency that landed on the Inc. 5000 list. We talked about why open communication and leadership humility are critical in scaling a company without losing its culture, and how SEO strategies should be treated like investing in real estate, a long-term play where understanding your market makes all the difference. If you're wondering how to build a company that grows fast without losing its heart, or how to navigate SEO without getting overwhelmed, this episode's for you. Danny, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Danny Gavin. I'm the founder and chief strategist of Optage. We're a full service digital marketing agency, primarily focusing on people that have had a bad time within a previous agency and they want to find a good agency. And we happen to work with a lot of service-based businesses, primarily in healthcare, legal, and home services.
Tell me a little bit about your background and how that led you to, and what led you to and inspired you to found Optage.
I was born in South Africa, and my parents immigrated to the United States in 1985. The reason why I start off with that is because I grew up in an immigrant family. We didn't have a lot of family around us within Houston at the time, but we did become part of a really cool, tight-knit community, which eventually I married my wife, who I grew up with from this community, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I grew up in a household where, my parents were working hard to provide us what we needed. I never felt like I didn't have anything, but there were moments where we went to the store and I really wanted that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle and I couldn't because my parents just couldn't afford it. So I understood the concept of working hard, not necessarily getting everything you wanted. My parents launched their first e-commerce website, which is really early days. And then I personally started getting involved in HTML, the world of AOL and Instant Messenger. I've got this early technology, web, digital marketing, e-commerce type of thing that's going on as well. So to fast forward, I went through the rabbinical high school and college, but I never wanted to do that for my actual livelihood. It was just important to me because being Jewish and religious, I wanted to have a strong foundation in my religion first and then move on to after that. So after I got out of there, I ended up going and getting my MBA from the University of Houston, and there formalized more education. I had a really good internship at a big e-com company, took some great practical classes related to digital marketing and marketing. And when I got out, I couldn't find that corporate job that would give me a six-figure salary, and was the whole reason why I went there. To me, that was success. So when I got out, I started consulting. I ended up going back in the family business to kind of be able to do both at the point. Fast forward 2017, decided to turn Optage into an actual agency. And 7-8 years later, we're here with a team of almost 30 and doing some really great work and passionate work.
Some questions on that. E-commerce, you've seen it evolve over the last 26 years. What are the biggest surprises there for you?
Well, I think it's funny because now we just take it for granted. I mean, even the fact that I'm getting Amazon packages at my house every single day, we don't remember, but even 6 years ago, it didn't happen. We still had to go to the store when we needed something. It's cool to be a part of it. I think the first transaction that my parents did online was with a lawyer in Chicago. And he's buying a diamond because they're in the diamond industry. And he's like, okay, I have to buy a diamond from someone in Houston, sight unseen. And he said, okay, I'm going to draft up a contract just to make sure that this is all good. And the best part is once I'm done, you can use this contract for all your future, for your future sales. Imagine if in the world of e-com, we actually had to sign an actual 10-page legal contract to actually do a transaction. And obviously we're way past that, right? We've got our credit cards connected to our systems. And if we need something, we just snap our fingers and we get it. So there's been a lot of growth. I think what's crazy is there are still countries and individuals who haven't adopted the easiness and all the wonderful benefits that come from e-commerce.
Do you think that that's a potential opportunity for growth, or do you think that their culture doesn't necessarily support this kind of instant gratification that we have so readily to us with our e-commerce abilities, like say Amazon Prime?
I think that sadly, right? Because I think certain cultures have a beautiful things about them. And then when like this Western world culture comes to them, it kind of destroys it in a way, right? So that's one way of looking at it. And the other way is, I mean, there are a lot of advantages from technology. Due to the fact that I'm in the world of technology, I kind of lean more to that aspect. Yeah, I think it's possible for everyone. I mean, wouldn't it be great that if someone lives in a rural area of their country and they don't get access to certain things, but now they can because they can order it online and it will be delivered to them? I think that's huge. It's a game changer. It means that you don't have to move to the city. You can still live where you're at and get access to the other resources that other people can. So I think I like to look at the positive side of things. And I think I see a lot of positive.
I love that. Well, also as a leader of an organization with like 30 people in it, your positivity is infectious to all of them. If you come in and you're positive about something, regardless of how far-fetched it might be, that they see that, they feel that, it's impactful. Like if you come in and you're having a bad day and you're down in the dumps, that's also impactful. They see that, they feel that, they mimic it. And that's, one of the reasons I think that being a positive leader, like at least having a positive attitude while being in a leadership position really does manifest itself in your team. And like long run, I think that it's better to be optimistic and positive about where you're going, where you want to go, because everybody else can kind of attach onto that and then kind of help you move that goal forward.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like you're kicking me in the butt a little bit because recently I've been being a little bit more cautious with things because I don't like overwhelm my team. And I'm like, I've been saying, like, you sure you can handle this? Like, you sure? I don't know, right? And like, yeah, we can do it, which is so cool. It's cool to be in that opposite seat where like I'm not forcing anyone to do it. I'm like really saying maybe you shouldn't, right? But they're like, no, we want to do it. So the reason I feel like it's kicking the butt is because maybe I need to be a little bit more positive, like realistic. But maybe I shouldn't lose that positivity and like that goal while balancing with like making sure to check with people that it's actually realistic.
I mean, looking at what you've posted as your bio or pseudo resume on your website, it's like, what can't you do? You run an agency, you teach, you have a podcast, you have 5 kids. So like, what else is there that you can't do that you actually tried to accomplish? Or is there anything?
I think at this point, it's figuring out I can't be everywhere and do everything with the ultimate. So I think now it's kind of like, I just turned 40. Not that that's old or young. It's whatever which way you look at it. But it's kind of like, yeah, thank God I've accomplished a lot. And now I think it's more about like honing in and like what's really important. And, just because I can do everything doesn't necessarily mean I should do everything. So, I think my goal like for the next years is to figure out like, how do I pull myself away maybe from some of these things that I've tried and are really cool, but maybe right now is not the right time to be part of it. So let's say I'm in more of like a contracting stage and expanding. But dude, I'm going to be lying to say like I'll get an itch where like even like now, like if you have a really big team, but like there might be an opportunity that comes in. I might be the only person who can do it. Should I really be doing it? No, but I'm going to do it anyhow because I know that like I want to try that out or I want to do it. So it's always going to be a balance. And, even if you take 2 steps forward, you might take 1 step back. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons that entrepreneurship is always such a interesting venture because like you have all these opportunities and as you spend more time in it, you get these additional resources, whether that like just be connections in space or time or, a team to help you build it, but it leads you on this really interesting journey. So I totally understand. You see these things crop up and you're like, wow, I want to go chase that for a little bit. And you're like, oh, wait, I'm getting distracted. I need to like shift back, focus on like my everyday job, make sure that what we're doing makes sense, make sure that I'm not burning too much time or capital, like playing in this sandbox over here.
Yes, exactly.
So Danny, let's switch topics a little bit. Let's get into what Optage actually does. Can you tell me a little bit about your services and what you do? Say like a 10,000 foot perspective.
Sure. So our goal is to help generate leads for businesses. And now it's like very high level. So, but if we break it down, our 3 core competencies come from SEO, which is organic search optimization, paid search, which is Google ads, Microsoft ads, and then paid social, which is going to be ads on any of the social media platforms, whether it's Meta, TikTok, if TikTok's still around, Nextdoor, Reddit, or any of those. So those are our three main. So other people might claim themselves as like the performance marketing agency. I mean, that's the same sort of concept. But in the end of the day, it's really whatever action that we're helping people do. Everyone has a product or service that they need to get out there. And particularly, we like to look more at the services side of things. So someone has a service. And the question is, how can they get more qualified people to see that and then get those leads? And certain strategies are long term. Organic usually takes more time. Certain strategies are short term or quicker and to see results. And it's really about figuring out what's going to be best for that client. What's the right strategy that they can handle, or where they are in their business life cycle that's going to make sense. And then make sure that we can track as best as possible the return on this investment. Because one of the beautiful things about digital marketing is that we can track. We know that tracking is getting harder these days because of different privacy and things like that, but we still can track a lot and do a lot. And so the question is, how can we create a situation as much as possible where, where the client, the company, if they put a certain amount of money in, what are we actually getting out from that? And then by analyzing what I get out from that, can I then go back to my campaigns and optimize properly? Because in the end of the day, I don't just want to optimize campaigns that are bringing me lots of leads or leads that cost the least. I want to make sure I'm optimizing the campaigns that are bringing me the qualified leads, or that are actually bringing me people who end up becoming customers. And the only way I can figure that out is if I combine those two things as tight as possible together.
So are you helping, or are you involved with understanding the client side conversion? So what I mean by that is, right, you set up SEO, or doing paid ads. So you see like a click-through rate, but are you actually able to see the conversion metrics from the client's perspective?
So the answer is yes, because part of what we do is we build out CRMs, and I'll tell you what that means. Or the clients have a CRM and we make sure our efforts are connected to it. Or if the client has enough money that, hey, go ahead and buy a CRM. So we're actually HubSpot partners, so that we're, biased to that platform. But for those people who maybe can't afford it or want to do it, so we do a lot of cool spreadsheet and automation so that when leads come through, they're in a spreadsheet, and then the client can come in and let us know, hey, this was a good one, this was a bad one, this one turned into a client, this was done. So we try to create that ecosystem. So even though technically our job is to get you leads, but the only way that my job is going to be well is if we connect ourselves. I connect your perspective and my perspective somewhere in the middle. And the only way we can do that is if we do, like, what are the actual leads that come in? And they're going to have to tell us what's qualified, what's not, what turned into a customer and what's not. And yeah, so most agencies don't worry about that or don't do it. I mean, there are some that do, but if you really want to get to the quality that we're trying to aim to, you've got to find a way to connect. And if that company does not have that system, we need to create it somehow. And then hopefully they see the value, and then, then that can be like the next investment. This is the next thing we're going to do.
I love that perspective, right? So from focusing on the full end to end, you're able to have a better picture of everything that's working for you, but also you have a perspective of how the client is able to handle the leads that you're able to produce. And then you're able to judge the quality of not only the leads that you're generating, but also, I would assume, partially their sales skills on how well they're able to sell their services, because you're like, all right, well, I've generated you X number of leads and you're converting at like 1.5%. So maybe your pitch is off, or maybe your services aren't aligning. So like, are you doing any coaching with your clients from that perspective also?
So I would say we don't get into sales training or sales sort of strategy. That's kind of where we leave off. It would be a really good area for us to upsell and to do more. But at this point, it's more just creating that system so that we can both see where that post lead conversion rate is going to. And then at that point, if there is an issue, we wouldn't necessarily be the best people to help them with that. But we could definitely point them to that direction, and then we could recommend someone, or they could take care of it themselves.
Got it. So I read that you guys landed on the Inc. 5000. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I think that was for last year, 2024?
Yeah.
Or this year's? Okay.
So is
it a trailing year? Or, I don't know.
So we won it in 2024, and that was the growth between 2021 through 2023. I guess that's
yeah, it's like a 3-year snapshot, right? And you had a huge amount of growth, correct?
Yes.
How did you, one, what was like the key one or two key metrics to producing that amount of growth over that period of time? And then two, how did you continue to foster your culture inside of your organization? Because I would assume at 200% growth over 3 years, you would also need to hire to support that growth. So how do you foster the people, bring them on, making sure that they understand the culture and everything that you're working on?
Yeah, great question. So Optage originally developed its culture within a small like office suite. I was like 4 or 5 of us like huddled together for a while. And then when COVID came along, obviously went remote, and we kind of went remote from there. Like we didn't really ever come back to the office. So that was a blessing because it allowed us to now, okay, go further. But obviously that culture that we created, I don't know if we would have been able to create it only remotely. Maybe, but it's different, right? So that was a whole thing in its own, right? Like creating this culture and then now remote. So I'm not going to talk as much about that, but I mean, I'll touch upon it a little bit. So I got to a point where I was working really crazy hours and really, really hard and maybe too hard. And it was just too much for me. And I knew that I needed help, but sometimes you don't know how to ask for help or what to do. But like you're having like your loved ones around you, like, man, you can't continue like this. It's not going to work. So there was a social media network called Clubhouse. I don't know if you ever were part of it, but Clubhouse was audio only. So during COVID, what was so cool, we're all stuck in our houses. And think of it as like it's a social network where there were rooms. You could come in and you could have a chat and conversation with many other people there. It was really cool. This was like a chat room, but an audio chat room. So my friend used to run one of these, and every Friday he'd get different marketers to come together to help each other out with jobs. I came to like speak in one of these rooms, and in walked in this lady, Leia Leaves, and she's like, "Hey everyone, I'm a fractional COO for digital marketing agencies." And I was like, "What? I didn't even know that existed. That's so cool." And I'm like, "Ooh, maybe I need to talk to her." So I spoke with her and then obviously found out what this even means, and realizing that most leaders or CEOs often are the visionaries and are the ones that have the ideas. But when it comes to actually like the systems and the processes, I think I could potentially do the role, but I'm so busy with everything else. I need to have someone, in the world of EOS, it's called an integrator, but someone who can actually come and build those systems and processes and sort of implement these systems. So I hired her for like a 3-month project and ended up having her for 3-4 years. She's actually leaving me the end of this month, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that was the answer. Like I proactively had to hire someone to help me create the strong foundation so that I could grow and add people. So an example, we have a whole video series when someone joins Optage that's onboarding them. What's our culture? What do we do? This is how you do different things. And I know it sounds simple, but it was a lot of work to put it together and actually get there. And that's an example of like something we've added. What I'm proud about is that even with this crazy growth, but people still say, especially when they come to work at Optage, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen a company like yours. I can't believe, just the way that you treat your people and the way that people get together. I've never seen a place like this before." So when I hear that, I know that I'm doing something right. And even though we're growing, it's still there. But let me tell you one important thing. When we first started out, things were becoming a lot easier for me and giving me more time. And therefore, I was able to sell a lot more and I was getting a lot more business. And I was starting to burn people out. And I didn't even realize it. And I was starting to turn into the guy that I never wanted to become. So, what saved me is that we had an open communication policy and people were not afraid to stand up against me. And I don't mean it in a bad way, but to actually tell me, like, "Danny, whoa, slow down. Like, you are turning this, you're losing whatever culture you built, like you're starting to lose it, even though you don't mean to do it, but you are." So I think like you spoke to me a little bit earlier, like what does someone do in order to save the culture or to save as they're growing? You have to have open communication. You have to be able to hear out your people. They have to keep you in check and you need to keep them in check. So I've had many people, I'm very blessed that in the past 3 years, 3-4 years, people have told me, "Danny, you are going against what you set out. And this is not the Optage culture. And it's not what we're supposed to do." And even though I didn't mean to break it, but you never know, right? Like sometimes you go in a different path or whatever. So I can't say that it's because of me, but I can say it's because of the people around me who really value what we have here as a company. And the last thing they want to see is that to be thrown away. And therefore we can do our best to keep each other in check and say, is that really something we would do to someone else? Is that really something we would add on? Is that really a pressure we would do? Is that, is that our core value? Is that what an Optage would do? And thank God we can ask that and challenge each other on that point, and be okay to say, ooh, I did something wrong. Let's see how I can correct that.
So 2 questions on the just kind of the open communication. 1, is it hard for you to hear that feedback from your team? And then 2, are you rewarding the people who speak up, whether it be for you or against you? Because like going against the leader of an organization, if you think that they're steering the ship wrong, like is probably one of the most difficult conversations if you aren't already in a leadership role. So
great question. So the first one is, I naturally take things very personally. So, and I think a lot of people do, but some people don't care. So it's very hard to hear feedback. So, but I know that I need to hear it in order to get better. And as much as it might be technically on paper my company, but it's not my company, it's everyone's company, right? Because if I didn't have them, I wouldn't be where I was today. So I have to hear that feedback. What I've had to work on is I can't change the feeling of, ugh, I feel yucky when I hear that, because that's just my natural feeling. So I have to work on not being defensive and hearing that, so when I get that, not suddenly saying, oh, what did I know? No, like actually sit, open up my ears, hear what the person has to say. And then once I get that, okay, then I can process it. So I guess that was the answer to your first question. The next question of, do I reward or punish when it comes? So I would say, look, there's the wrong way to give feedback, where you're being rude or you're standing up in front of the whole company and speaking out against the owner. I've had that before. And that I won't tolerate, because there's a certain respect that we have to give people, right? Now, if you are respectful, right, you've got respectful, care about someone's feelings, and sometimes certain things don't belong in a public area. Sometimes it has to be private. So if it's done in that way, then yes, that's good. And you know what? Even though you tell people that, it's open communication policy and things like that, it's still hard for people to do it. And therefore, even if I create a form that says, hey, it's anonymous, or you need to speak up or whatever, I think the only way that we can make people comfortable is by leading by example. So it's just a matter of me trying to do it more and show people I'm open and hearing feedback, having my leaders or the department heads showing that more. And if we show it and we're living it and we're doing it, then hopefully people will be willing to do it. But just because you say it doesn't mean people are going to do it. And I've had to learn that the hard way, because I felt like there's some companies that don't even allow it. So if I just say do it, then everyone's going to be like, oh, great, this is so cool. But that's being jaded, because bottom line is people still aren't going to feel comfortable. So how do I make them feel comfortable? We got to keep working at it.
To speak up in any situation, right? Like I myself personally, I'm quite introverted. So confrontation is not one of the things that I do well with. I'm like you, like I can sit and actively listen to feedback from others, especially when it's like a criticism of something that I'm doing. But I have to like separate myself from my body and just kind of sit back and listen to it and absorb it and not react to it at that point in time, and just be like, okay, they're trying to help me with something. Listen to what they're saying, process it, and then see if there's action steps that you can take that they can help you realize what you need to do to move yourself or whatever forward. So that's my process there. But yeah, like super, really similar to you, like having open communication is key for anything, right? It's key within your organization. It's key when you're servicing customers, because let's be honest, not all work is delivered on time. And assuming that you're able to communicate that to the clients are usually pretty understanding of, look, this, and this happened. We're 2 days behind. We're 3 days behind. As long as you're on top of the communication, they're fine with that. It's when you put it off until the day that it's due and say, hey, I need an extension, then they're mad.
Yep, I agree.
So let's change the topic a little bit. I struggle with SEO. Just kind of like, I understand the basic principles of it. I try to do everything that I can to improve my own site's SEO. As someone who specializes in SEO, can you teach me one or two things that I should be looking out for when optimizing, say, a fresh site with a focus on improving my site's SEO? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So let's not get into the world of AI and is SEO going to last? Are people going to ChatGPT? That's a whole nother conversation. So, but for now, at least in the world where, yes, people go to Google, and Google has 11 links or 10 links, and I want to show up on the first page. What do I need to do? So I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. And the way that I kind of want to present it to you is that every page of Google is a neighborhood. Okay. And certain neighborhoods, to buy a house in that neighborhood, it's enough to have a American Express silver. In order to come into another neighborhood, you need that American Express gold. And for the other neighborhood, like you just got to pay $1 million cash, right? You can't even have the credit card. So the idea is that every query that we want to try to search show up for on Google, like there are already 10 or 11 sites that rank up on there. And the question is, I need to take a look at them and see what are they talking about? What are they covering? Because in the end of the day, Google wants to send a person to a site that's going to answer their questions and maybe even answer questions they didn't even know they had. Because as soon as someone goes to a website and then goes back to Google, that's the biggest sign to Google that, I don't know if this guy deserved to be number 1 or 2. And maybe we need to start pushing them down because they don't have all the answers. So therefore, yes, there are fancy SEO tools that can help you do these things a lot easier. But really what it's about is, okay, I know that certain queries are important to my business. And how do I know this? Either I know this because I just know it, like I know what I sell, I know what I do. Obviously, to do a little bit of keyword research and see, okay, what are the phrases that people are using? That's important as well. So that would be another thing that people should do. And that you would have to potentially get a tool. Now, you could use the Google Ads Keyword Planner, which is a free tool. You'd have to open up like a Google Ads account, not actually spend anything, but at least have it to access that data. But there are tools like Ubersuggest and SEMrush where just buy 1 month, right? It could be $50, $100, and then do your research during that time. Once you have a general idea of like what people are searching for, what's the volume around that, you know what those queries are, you're going to be able to start prioritizing based on your business. And also these tools also provide difficulty scores of what you think is more difficult. But then, okay, what do I do next? It's like, okay, I need a page on my website that is going to be the representative that Google wants to show when someone's searching for this thing. So what do I put on this page? It's really about going to Google, go to the first page and look at what's happening there, right? If every single result on that page has a YouTube video on it, there's a good chance that if you don't add a YouTube video to your page, why would they allow you into that neighborhood, right? If every single page on that site, every single site on Google has 2,000 words of text and they talk about these problems, if you've got 1,000 words of text and maybe you only talk about 4 of the problems, maybe you're not going to be the right guy to come in there. Now, obviously, your goal should not be just to match it. Your goal should be, what can I do to make this even better? How can I provide even more value than these other guys? But at least you know what that baseline is. And now there are some times where you can come to the page and see that all 10 guys on there are the biggest spenders of radio advertising in America, right? It's, State Farm, help me with the different insurance companies.
Geico.
Geico, think about it, right?
Yeah.
So then if you come to that neighborhood, then you also have to be realistic and be like, to get onto this list, search is not just about, good content or whatever, but Google's looking at a lot of different factors. And these guys have really well-established brand names. And they're doing a lot of other things besides just SEO. So you've got to be like, okay, it's very possible that I will not be able to come here without spending a lot of money and doing the types of things that they do. Therefore, this query might not be the right one for me. And if you see that your whole industry is like that, then you do have to think about it and say, okay, maybe SEO is not the best strategy for me. And maybe I need to find other ways to generate my business. Doesn't mean I shouldn't have a good website and everything else, but to rely on the fact that I'm going to become number 1 for some of these things, it's going to be a little bit difficult if I don't get to their level.
Really appreciate that. Right. It seems so simple the way that you put it, suggesting that each page is kind of its own neighborhood. Yeah, I mean, I may not be at the point where I can spend $1 million cash to be in that neighborhood yet. So it may be the realistic goal for me to be on page 2, and that's okay. I understand that everybody wants to be on the first page of Google. And really, I think with a lot of people, that's a great ambition, but may not ultimately be super realistic, especially if you're new into business, if you have a new site, and if it's not being managed by a professional like yourself.
Yeah. Another example that I give for SEO is I compare it to investing in real estate. And I'm not talking about the quick house flippers, But your old school real estate is about, okay, how do I buy this piece of property, invest in it, add more, build it up, and then over 7-10 years, sell it and make a killing, right? But what that means is that it's a process, it's time. And SEO is a process and time. And therefore, going back to what I said before about finding the right fit, but there are a lot of people who can't afford to wait until they see those results, and they need to see things which are a little more immediate. And therefore, doesn't mean they shouldn't do SEO, but it's like, realize, okay, this is what SEO means and let's do it, but I might need to do some other things in the meantime, because anyone who says, yeah, I'll guarantee you'll position number one in 6 months, right? That's BS. So you just got to be realistic. That's it. It's not for everyone, but everyone could do it, but it just depends.
It just takes time, right? And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs like me, I think about SEO in fits and starts and stops. Like, I think about it a lot. I do a lot of stuff to help it along, and then I stop. And then 2 months goes by and I do it again. And then I do it again. It's like, as I have gaps of time that allow me to focus on these other things, being able to write articles, put thoughts down on paper, and actually produce something that would be helpful. In my case, like thinking about podcasting, and like, here's the equipment that, you would consider at like each level, at a beginner level, at like an intermediate level, and you're doing this full time and you're making $1 million doing it. Like, those are all very different considerations. So, like putting thought leadership into stuff like that just takes time. And I think it's similar with SEO, is like, it takes time for you to be considered a thought leader in Google's eyes.
And that's why the smart ones are the ones that like create an article like that. Like, what are the best ways to podcast or whatever? How can I take this one marketing effort that I'm doing, create an article that's optimized for SEO, but then also it's really good article for LinkedIn and really good 5 good posts that I could do. And also, it's now I've got some great posts for other social media. The idea is once again, it's like that portfolio strategy where if I'm just going to do one thing and it's only for the one thing, it's not as powerful as if I can do one thing, but then now use it in multiple places. Then that's just a smarter, right? So no one's going to go and put all their money into Apple. They're going to maybe hopefully put in the S&P 500 so it's more spread out, or buy multiple stocks. But but that's the idea. I think these days people need to start thinking about away from single channel strategies, and we've got to spread out a little bit more, especially as things are changing, because people are acting in different ways, right? And I see with my business, like our business is primarily referral based. And so therefore, the more that I can do to get more people to see me, and the people who know me can think about me a little more often, so that when they're speaking to a friend, they can recommend me, right? That's super powerful. And, every business gets leads and customers in different ways, but that's why it's important to don't put all your eggs in one basket. Because as we see with TikTok, it could just be one day where it just disappears and then you're really messed over.
I'm still a little upset about that. I started my entrepreneurship journey last year, just kind of journaling it on TikTok. Right. And I started building a following because I was doing that. And now I'm having to pivot to now include more YouTube shorts. Luckily, YouTube extended their short period to be 3 minutes, and now reels and this, that, and the other thing. So I'm continuing to like journal what it is that I'm working on, more so for like me and accountability, and just trying to connect with people. And if they connect with what I'm doing, that's awesome. If not, then that's okay too, right? Like, some of the content that I produce isn't necessarily about the audience. It's more about me getting my thoughts out and feeling good about what I'm doing and showing progress and knowing that I'm going somewhere with it. But yeah, I started that on TikTok, and then, like, it could go away again in 70
Painful.
days. I think the counter is at now.
Yeah.
So Danny, you've been a fantastic guest. I really appreciate your time today. At the end of each one of my episodes, I give all of my guests 90 seconds to plug anything that they're passionate about. So in your case, that could be Optage. It could be, education. It could be finding your community. But without further ado, the next 90 seconds are yours.
Thank you, Brian. So I'm involved in 3 areas. Obviously, one of them is Optage, which is our digital marketing agency. 2 other areas that we didn't really speak about on the podcast are, one is my podcast, which is called the Digital Marketing Mentor. And we talk about the intersection between mentorship and marketing. And it's been a wonderful journey. Some amazing, powerful stories of the people who influenced great marketers, how they influence them and how are these marketers now influencing others. So check that out. That's available wherever you get your podcast. In addition to that, I am a professor at the University of Houston for the past 10 years, teaching master's level digital marketing. And a couple of years ago, I started my own academy based off of that called Audio Academy, where I provide online learning, specifically digital marketing fundamental courses that just to help people, especially I've got a lot of people who are working in jobs that they don't really enjoy. And I'm opening up their eyes to the world of marketing and working for themselves or working for others. And it's been really cool. So if you're interested in any online education, I know there's a lot out there, but if you want to check out our style and flavor, that's audioacademy.com.
Danny, thanks again for your time.